Nigeria grapples with the ravaging effects of community transmission of COVID-19, with more stringent measures by some state assemblies to contain the spread. Consumption and trafficking in illicit drugs continue to pose socio-economic problems to countries and humanity. Attention on this year's International Drug Day is on scaling up of the party's National Working Committee. This followed the recommendation by President Muhammadu Buhari to the emergency meeting of the committee. Correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
The emergency virtual NEC meeting of the APC, anchored from the council chambers of the presidential villa, was convened to find lasting solutions to the internal crisis undermining the unity, stability, and cohesion within the governing party. President Buhari was joined at the council chambers by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, presiding officers of the National Assembly, governors, and few members of the committee, while others participated online from across Nigeria. Apart from the dissolution of the National Working Committee of the party, as well as the appointment of a caretaker and extraordinary convention planning committee chaired by Governor Mai Mala Buni of Yobe State, the NEC meeting also ratified the recently conducted Edo APC governorship primary election won by Pastor Osage Ize Iyamu.
It is with a deep sense of concern that I stand before you today.
President Muhammadu Buhari had earlier told members that the administration of the party was becoming impossible. Its fortune was in jeopardy, and therefore the urgent need for intervention to arrest further drifts that may lead to total disintegration. He therefore made a case for the withdrawal of all litigations against one another and indeed the governing party in the various law courts.
What we see clearly emerging is that we are beginning to self-destruct. This, my dear party members, is not just regrettable but utterly gut-wrenching. The potential fallout from this conduct will not only cause us to lose the gains that we have labored for with our sweat over the years, but makes a mockery of our ability to maintain party cohesion and close our ranks. We must return to our winning ways.
The president said pragmatic and guided approach must also be undertaken towards consolidating on the successes recorded and ensure that the party does not lose its pride of place as the gold standard and pace setter in Nigeria.
We must be alive to the time and the task that is before us. This is the time to get our acts together and ensure that we are united and not working at cross purposes. We must instill and enforce party discipline. Failure in taking these measures places our party in a difficult position that negates years of struggle and sacrifices. Arising from this virtual meeting, remember our pledge to serve the people of Nigeria.
In the meantime, the new chairman, caretaker, and extraordinary convention planning committee and governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni, has been sworn in.
As a former two-term national secretary of the party, I know the party very well, and it's all about doing justice to every member of the party, because without justice, there won't be peace. And it is all about team playing. I'm a team player. I have a capable team that can work with me. And if you don't manage crisis, obviously crisis will manage you. So I won't allow any crisis to fester henceforth.
We are happy that today the issues bedeviling our party has been laid to rest by these momentous decisions, and we are equally congratulating Mr. President on the exercise of the mandate that has been given to him by Nigerians, and today the party issues which should not distract him has been sorted.
The 13-member caretaker and convention planning committee, which has a period of 6 months to execute its mandate, includes the governors of Niger and Osun states. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
We'll now have an update on PDP primaries in Edo State.
A total of 2,252 delegates were accredited for the exercise. INEC officials and some observers witnessed the exercise, which was orderly. There was security presence.
The process is seamless and it's going very well. Everything went well, beautiful, and I'm so happy.
You can say that it's completely hitch-free.
The Deputy Governor Philip Shaibu was one of the delegates.
You can see how organized and peaceful the voting is, and I'm very excited.
Members of the Primary Election Committee, including the governors of Oyo State, Sheyi Makinde and Bello Matawale of Zamfara State, partook in the collation of results, recording 2,024 as total vote cast, while 72 votes were invalid. Governor Obaseki sees the outcome of the exercise as divine.
At this point in time, there's the best interest of Edo for me to continue with the work we're doing. Let's now use this opportunity to fast-track the reforms we started.
With this development, Obaseki will now contest with Osage Ize-Iyamo of the APC and other candidates in the remaining 13 parties. In Benin, Goodluck Inaini, NTA News.
To improve their understanding of the world drug problem and foster greater international cooperation for countering its impact on health, governance and society is the focus for this year's International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. Ashezi Gopep reports that the theme for this year is Better Knowledge for Better Care.
Substance abuse and the illicit trafficking of drugs has been threatening the socio-economic development of many nations, including Nigeria, in view of the growing danger and the deterioration of the quality of life of victims. The General Assembly at the United Nations in December 1987 designated 26th June to be celebrated as International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. The day is to raise awareness on the major problems that illicit drugs represent in the society, as well as create a society free of drugs.
Young age is the age in which a person is most likely to start using the psychoactive substances, and because they are active, because they are more daring and more risk-taking, they are more likely to use the psychoactive substance. But there are people who have started using psychoactive substances even in their old age, depending on what the problem is. And in the past, it used to be said that males are more at risk than females, but right now, amongst female, even the use of psychoactive substances is really increasing, so everybody is at risk.
What pushed the youth into drug addiction? They want to belong to a society, and some of them, they want to be high. Particularly those of them that love music, you discover that they will go and take some of these drugs so that they will perform very well on stage. Instead for them to feel shy, you will discover that they will take the drugs so that they will perform very well. And some of them, because of criminal indulgences, they want to go into criminal activities. They will take these drugs in order to boost their morals, that they will not fear anybody. They go into it. And some of them, the drugs are into various categories. Some of them, they take the drugs so that it will make them to calm down. Some of them, it makes them to be hyperactive.
Drug addiction and illicit trafficking is a major deterrent to humanity and a poison to the well-being of the youth in particular, which poses greater problems to the socio-economic and political stability of a nation.
There are a lot of restrictions on some prescription drugs and whatever, but the enforcement of such laws are still way behind. So these drugs are still available people can go and buy them. And then there are still hawkers on the streets that carry all manners of prescription drugs that they are not supposed to carry. Some of them are improperly formulated. Now, if government would be able to, cut them, there should be some form of enforcement where these people can be arrested and prosecuted, to reduce the amount of the availability of the drugs on.
We have in the studio a professor of psychiatry, University of Jos, and director, Quintessential Healthcare Center here in Jos, Dr. Moses Audu. You're welcome, Panorama, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We've gone through that report and the theme for this year. Would you just tell us what it means and how will this measure impact positively on the fight against drug abuse?
Yes, there's a need for international collaboration because no nation can actually fight this illicit trafficking and then the substance use or substance use disorder alone. And again, people need to be aware of the problem so that they can take steps to mitigate them. You are dealing with people who are actually well organized. The drug lords are well organized. They are very rich. They can compromise the security of nations, and they indulge in criminal activities. And there are people who continuously devise new means of beating the system, and they think, way ahead of even governments. So it is something that is organized and is complex, and it goes across all nations of the world. So with this international collaboration, you can't fight it alone, because if you don't produce this in your country, some other people produce in other countries and then traffic it to your own country. So it's a very complex problem. So all hands must be on deck, and all countries must come out and team up together to fight this menace. Again, there should be awareness, because some nations don't give particular attention to to drug abuse, and you find that they don't even allocate so much budget and they don't fight it much. But these things can destroy nations. You can't develop when you have rampant cases of drug use and then your young population is being decimated or is being corrupted by substance use. So yeah, that's why this team is very, very relevant and pertinent at this moment.
Okay, recently there has been some upsurge in cases of rape, and we've seen people protest, we've seen people come out to say no to that. What is the relationship between these illicit drugs, and rape?
Yeah, the relationship is not as simple as people think. For anyone to indulge in drug use, there are so many factors. There are individual factors, and there are also social-cultural factors. There are biological factors, there are social factors, there are psychological factors that are involved. Nobody just wakes up and begins to abuse drugs. So you look at and usually drug use is very common among the poor and people who maybe have high risk. For instance, those who have family history of drug use, those who are mentally ill, the young ones, and where there is no proper enforcement of law and order, where there are no proper policies, regulating the use of these substances, then they thrive. But individuals who also rape are people who might not be very sound, mentally. There's some problem. If you have to rape, then it means that something is amiss, something has gone wrong. And usually they use drugs, and these drugs, help in the facilitation of release of aggressive impulses. Once they take drugs, for instance, alcohol, whatever drugs they use, they help them to release all their aggressive impulses. And actually, rape is an act of aggression. It might be criminal, but it's also an act of aggression. And they need these drugs to mar, their judgment. And once they take them, they don't think about the consequences, and they are not inhibited anymore, so they can go ahead and rape and do whatever they want to do. So there's a strong relationship, but the relationship is a very complex one. It's the same thing that makes them go into drug use is the same, similar factors that make them go into rape. So there's a symbiotic relationship between these two.
So yes. How do you think Nigeria as a country can handle this?
Yes, Nigeria as a country can handle it in many ways. First of all, the country has to do a lot to prevent, drug use in the supply of drugs, and then work hard, to reduce the demand of drugs, and also treat those who are already using drugs. The country also has to be able to decriminalize the use of drugs so that many people who are already using drugs can actually access treatment. So, and then there must be enabling laws and policies and enforce them so that when people engage in such things, they are able to apprehend them, they are able to prosecute them properly. But we also, I said it's a very complex thing. The government must also provide the basic needs for the society, because when people are able to meet their needs, they have their business, food, shelter, and clothing, they're able to go to school, and they educate themselves, and then they thrive economically, then you find that the issue of substance use is drastically reduced. Then when you enforce law and order and educate them, then you find that fewer people will go into the use of these drugs, not even to think of going to rape. And when people go to school and they're educated and they have all the skills, the life skills inculcated in them to be able to live better lives, they will not be thinking about going to rape. But in a society where laws are not enforced, where laws are rampant, and people can actually, maybe even when they engage in rape, they bribe their way out, and then it's something like a shameful thing for you to even come out and say, I have been raped. When you have such things, then you find that the issue of drug and rape will continue.
Okay. Doctor, I'm curious here. Just share with us your experience briefly on the issue of rehabilitation.
Well, the issue of rehabilitation of drug users is a complex thing. There are people who are already using substances, and they suffer from substance use disorders, which means that the substances have already affected their personal, their occupational, and family, with responsibilities. So they don't function very well. Okay. And these ones need treatment. But there are some who are also who have been using this sort of for a long time, and they become dependent. And once you become dependent or addicted, it's a lifelong thing. It's a chronic.
All right, thank you. I wish we had the time for to get these things really settled. But then, Panorama will continue shortly in a moment. Stay with us, please.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 594 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, taking the total number of cases to 22,614. 159 cases in Lagos, 106 in Delta, 44 in Ondo, 34 in each of FCT and Edo, while Oyo and Kaduna have 33 each. Others are Enugu 28, Katsina 25, Imo 22, Adamawa 15, Ogun 12, and Oshun with 11. Abia recorded 8 cases, Rivers 6, 5 in each of Nasarawa, Bauchi, and Niger, 4 in Kebbi, 3 in Ekiti, and 1 each in Plateau and Taraba. In total, there are now 22,614 active cases, with 7,822 patients discharged. Unfortunately, there have also been 549 deaths recorded so far. As community transmission of COVID-19 continues, the Presidential Task Force says community support centers for the management of COVID-19 cases are to be established in 21 high-burdened local government areas. Presidential Task Force Chairman Boss Mustafa says this has become necessary as most states are struggling from insufficient facilities for isolation and treatment of cases. Mitaire Ipan reports.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 notes that disregard for its guidelines among Nigerians is encouraged by skepticism and ignorance.
There are people who do not believe it's real because they are not seeing the sort of high number of deaths or the health crisis that is currently occurring in many parts of the world. But our numbers are already increasing. We don't want to reach that stage.
And my appeal to Nigerians listening, let's take this thing serious. By now, with 500 plus fatalities, you can't be ignorant and you can't say you don't know of anybody that has fallen victim.
With the use of transparent face shield becoming popular, the PTF warns that it does not guarantee 100% protection against COVID-19.
Face shields are great, but they should be used in addition to face masks and not in place of.
Nigerians are advised to be patient with the process of validating claims for COVID-19 cure.
You cannot just take this remedy and start applying it on patients. No, it's not done like that way. There is an international protocol for all these things. The long and short of it is that there is no shortcut to these processes.
We have 2 vaccines that are in the latest phase of testing, and we expect to see results by the end of this year. Although we cannot predict that at this stage whether these 2 vaccines will meet the required or necessary standards.
There is no specific date yet for resumption of domestic flights, but a test run is due on Saturday.
After this dry runs, we'll have a look, observe, and see the gaps that might still be there, and we'll close them.
With few days to the end of the second phase of easing the lockdown, the task force will submit its assessment and recommendations to President Buhari this weekend for the next line of action. In Abuja, Mitaire Ipan, NTA News.
The story of insecurity in Nigeria has been told severally, with each day unveiling a new chapter of challenges begging for solutions. As efforts are being intensified to change the narrative, Plateau State is doing this by keying into the efforts of the Inspector General of Police towards repositioning community policing. The report. The caliber of personalities here underscores the importance of the event, even as the issue of insecurity has continued to be the concern of all. Commissioner of Police, Plateau State Command, Edward Ebuka, emphasized the need for everyone to rise against perpetrators of evil in the society.
I believe that this Inspector General of Police initiative, which had firm approval of the presidency, will pay us off and produce good results on the plateau.
Governor Simon Lalong represented expressed hope that the inclusion of community leaders and other key players will further boost the security apparatus in the state.
The message of the governor to all of us here is to ensure that we commit ourselves to the cause of peace. And where there are problems, we should be frank enough to bear our minds so that solutions will be found.
The two committees inaugurated are State Community Policing Committee and Area Command Policing Advisory Committee. That's it on Panorama from Jos Network Center. Thank you for your time.